I'd like to welcome everybody out to the Domesticated Savages podcast. This week, we are doing the theme of Fight Night.
Fight Night!
Today, we've got me, Jake. I've also got with me Jeremy. What's up, Jeremy?
What's going down?
We got Fitz on again. How you doing, Fitzy?
Hi.
And today, we've got a special guest. We've got our boy, Johann Rubio. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Everybody used their slow jam voice, so
Yeah.
Damn, he's ready for this.
What's up?
thank you for having me, boys.
That I've got a semi now. Just saying
I'm kind of turned on already.
that was hot as shit.
I like
It's going to
it.
be a very short podcast. We got some shit to do.
So we got Johann on our podcast tonight, and I said our theme is Fight Night, right? So the reason why we have Johann in is because he is a professional fighter, fights mixed martial arts. Johann, what kind of fighting do you do? Who do you fight for? What would you say, league that you fight in? Would you call it a league? Would you call it a sponsorship?
It's a
What is it?
promotion.
A promotion?
Yeah.
Okay. So give us the nitty gritty of what you do, who you do it for, and when you do it, whatnot.
For those of you that aren't familiar with the mixed martial arts world, mixed martial arts basically, dumbed down version would be like kickboxing mixed with Muay Thai, mixed with wrestling, mixed with jiu-jitsu, judo, things of that nature. So you can punch someone, you can knee someone, elbow, kick, take them to the ground, you can body slam them, stuff like that. And then you can do submissions, arm bars, leg locks, chokes, stuff like that. So that's basically a dumbed down version of what mixed martial arts is.
So what do you specialize in anything particular?
Yeah, so I'm primarily have a grappling background.
Okay.
I wrestled for about 6 years of my life, and I've been doing MMA, so with jiu-jitsu and everything on top of that for another like 8 years.
Okay.
So
Sweet. All right. So that's what you kind of specialize in. That's what your repertoire is. Obviously you train for everything though, because you never know what's coming at you. So you need to know what's coming at you, right? In that realm.
yeah, so I mean, the past couple of years, my main focus has been improving my stand-up.
Okay.
So my kickboxing, my Muay Thai, stuff like that.
Okay.
Just because there's a higher level to that other than grappling. I feel very comfortable on the ground,
Right.
whether I'm on bottom or on top, But the stand-up portion was something.
I prefer the bottom.
Yes, he does.
I'm lazy, maybe.
It definitely can feel like a rest, but the stand-up aspect of things is where I had to really polish stuff out. And I think the last 2 years, I've definitely sharpened the tools in that area.
So I've seen your last 3 fights. And there's definitely, I mean, obviously I'm not as big of an expert, but watching a lot of fights and being in a lot of fights, like just your fights from the first fight that we watched, your stand up from that fight, the one at FitCon.
Which is
Yeah.
how long
And
ago was that?
That was over the summer, right?
That was
last.
No, that was August 2020.
So from August until this last fight that you had, your opening
Yeah.
pro fight,
Yeah.
dude, your stand up in both of those were almost night and day different.
Yeah. 100%.
It was awesome. Yeah, that was really fun. That was a fun fight.
I think a big portion of that too is that that fight in 2020 was also after my 4-year layoff of fighting.
Oh yeah.
So I think that might have played into it a little bit, but I definitely felt the difference in my stand up,
Yeah.
technique wise and everything.
Cool.
It looked good because you rocked that dude from Vegas a couple times.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually broke his jaw the first time we connected where I dropped him.
Yeah,
They said that's where his jaw got broken. So that was cool.
That was a solid hit.
So the promotion you fight for, what is it?
So there's a couple different promotions, but the one that I've been fighting for is Fierce Fighting Championship.
You've got a fight coming up. When is that fight?
January 29th at the Maverick Center.
January 29th at the Maverick Center. All right. So you've got the fight coming up. You're preparing for that. What are you doing to prepare for that fight?
People prepare 2 months or 3 months for a fight, and they call that fight camp mode, right? My coach doesn't really believe in that. He doesn't really believe in hey, this is a fight camp. He just believes in you train all around year round, and then you're just prepared for fights.
Well, and who's your trainer, right? Talk about your trainer a little bit, because the dude's kind of a legend. The dude's kind of a big deal in the MMA UFC world.
Yeah, so my main coach, Jeremy Horn, he's definitely, as you would say, a legend in the sport. He's had over 170 pro fights, and he's
That's
fought
a
from
lot.
like UFC
lot,
to
dude.
like Pride to like everything in between. The dude's as you would call a savage.
Yeah.
He does like 3-gun competitions. He's what I call the real life John Wick.
Oh, nice.
Like he'll kill you with his hands or kill you with a gun.
I didn't know he did 3-gun competitions.
Oh, he does competitions every week.
Oh, nice.
He loves to shoot. He's such a good shooter. So
cool.
fast.
That's
I think
way
he has
cool.
like a professional record. It's like 90 something and 20 losses.
He's fought a lot. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
I have a question. Coming from a different sports background, like in football, when you're preparing for a game, you kind of study film on another team. You watch your own film, but kind of what they do. Do you do something similar in MMA? Do you study up on the guy you're fighting, what his primary focus is or what he's really good at, try to exploit some of their weaknesses?
Yeah, so we definitely do things like that. I don't get too in depth with it because, I mean, as they say, when you get punched in the face, that's when your game plan goes out, right?
Right.
I don't get too in depth with that. You definitely do study a little bit of film, get a feel for like, hey, are they a striker? Are they a grappler? What are they looking? How are they looking in their fights? Like, do they get tired? When they get tired, how do they look? How's their defense? How's their offense? I don't get too in depth with it. I know some people do. And especially when you hit like the higher leagues, they definitely go over footage like day in, day out and kind of try to exploit some of their expertise.
So is there somewhere, if somebody's interested to purchase a ticket to go watch you fight, is there somewhere they can go?
So you can go to fiercefightingchampionship.com. So you just click on tickets and then they have pictures of all of the fighters. So you could just like click on my face or whoever your favorite fighter is, whatever. And then you click on it and then it sends you straight to the access link.
So when they go there, obviously it's going to be the best looking face on the whole damn website.
Well, so when you
Right.
go when you go to the website, when you open it up, that main screen is Johann.
Nice.
It's
So-
dope. It's sexy. Well, and it that one, if I remember correctly, that wasn't even your pro fight. That was your last amateur fight. And
Yes,
that
sir.
one-
I should
that
have
one
gotten
was
paid for that one. That was
that
rough.
was a-
That was a good fight.
an awesome fight. Yeah.
So they
He's
can
bloody,
go
just-
there. They can buy your tickets, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they click on you and kind of promote you, or is there like statistical stuff that goes along with that?
Yeah, so they kind of like mark down like certain sales or whatever, and then we get a percentage off ticket sales and stuff like that.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. And before we started this up, we were kind of chilling beforehand. You were talking about you guys are selling some swag. You guys are selling some like hoodies and T-shirts and stuff like that. Where's that being sold at? What is it for? What's the deal with that?
Yeah, so my sponsors, Damage Plan MMA Podcast, shout out to them. They are the ones
We'll shout
that-
them out if they shout us out. How's that sound?
Sounds good to me.
Tell them to shout us out.
They're the ones that kind of like help do the whole hoodies and shirts thing and get all my other sponsors on board, and we print it off, and basically I get like a percentage of it too, and it helps with meal costs and like training costs and stuff like that. They also hooked it up this time, and they got me a whole banner made.
Oh, cool.
So I'm going to be walking out with a banner. It's going to be cool.
Nice. So how do you find them? What's the best way to find them?
So you can just look them up on Instagram at Damage Plan MMA Podcast.
Johann, how long you been on the department, bro?
Almost 4 years.
So what are some of the things you've done on the department?
Okay, so obviously I started off as a patrol officer, just a beat cop, hitting the streets, you know.
The best. The best of the best, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
That's really where the
bread and the butter.
that's
That is
the bread and the butter. Because that's where you see all the shit. Obviously, detectives, you know, they kind of do the back end follow up stuff, but that's where the action is. You know, if you really want to get into the action of pretty much any police department, it's hitting the streets, working a beat, pushing a car, and going to
A black and white.
a black and white into the unknown of what's going on.
Into the unknown.
You're pushing it straight into
Do you
the
start
unknown,
singing us the song?
into the great wide open.
Oh
baby.
my gosh. I thought you were going to sing us an Elsa song or some bullshit. It's
Oh,
up-
is that the new Frozen?
Yeah, the
I don't
Frozen 2.
recognize anything other than the original.
Whatever. So you've done patrol. What else have you done?
So I did patrol for a couple years. I did POU when all the riots broke out
That's-
throughout the nation.
Public Order Unit,
Yes.
for our people that don't know.
Hashtag Riot Squad. You know.
Hashtag Riot Squad.
Also a collateral gang detective, currently still collateral SWAT member, and I'm also one of the instructors for the defensive tactics in the academies.
That leads you to where you are nowadays.
Yes.
Okay, so those collateral assignments are something you do along with being on patrol. You said defensive tactics instructor. So when I was in the training unit, I was the lead DT instructor, and I'd have my collateral guys come and help me out a ton. When you started doing that DT stuff, obviously I remember being like a big boon because I knew you had a ton of background in mixed martial arts, which is something that I would love for all of the police officers to have a background in, especially nowadays. When I hired on, 16 plus years ago, it was like, all right, we're going to get down to a street fight. It's a matter of tagging somebody in the face and taking somebody down and like whooping their ass, right?
Yep.
Just kind of like an old street fight. Nowadays, it's like everybody and their mom, it seems like, is practicing some sort of martial art. You name it, they probably practice it. You being that DT instructor, defensive tactics instructor, and having a mixed martial arts background, how do you feel like your MMA background helps you out in patrol? What do you do on patrol that's like similar to what you practice at MMA? And what would you suggest people do to make themselves more proficient? The other cops out there, make themselves more proficient so they can, take care of themselves, be safe out there on the streets.
Good questions. The biggest thing that I tell people that want to be law enforcement or something along the lines, even security, I would say, right, is that they just need to get somewhere and start training. Like, you want to train Muay Thai? Go ahead. Go train Muay Thai, but do something. You want to train boxing? Go do it. You want to do jiu-jitsu? Go do it. Do something that's gritty, something that's going to be hard, something that's actually going to be worth something, right?
The ability to control somebody, that is absolutely something we train nowadays. It's like controlling the hips, controlling the head, controlling those things. Because if you control those things, then you can safely secure that subject. When I was a new guy, it was like, wrist lock. Wrist locks if those didn't work, it was like, just beat the shit out of them until they don't move anymore, and then put the handcuffs on them. That's how it was, dude. I'm dead serious. I could whoop some people's asses because that's all we knew how to do.
That's exactly what it was. A guy's resisting. It's showtime, and it's basically trading blows.
You have 9 fights, 10 fights.
10.
Of your 10 fights, which one would you say is your most difficult fight, and why?
Definitely the Radin fight at the Maverick Center.
I was there for that one.
That was the toughest fight because I didn't expect him to put on the volume with his stand up as much as he did, and he was so fluid with it that it was hard to really like get around it. I had to just kind of like pick and choose shots. And I mean, what was great about it is that like every time I connected with his face, I could see his like light switches flicker. I would connect once like really hard, and I could see him kind of like stumble and stutter, but then he'd be right back on the volume. And he just kept the volume really good, and his wrestling was good. So he just kept pressuring, and he was just a tough dude overall. I took him down in the second round, and I put him in an Americana, and it was a deep Americana. I would say like most people would have tapped, and I heard one of his like ligaments snap, and I thought that was it, but the dude freaking bridges out and stands up, keeps fighting, and he's still about it. And so for sure, that was my hardest fight.
Well, I remember that takedown. And as soon as you got down and you guys were wrestling around, our entire table stood up. Tyler starts, everyone's yelling, and then all of a sudden you guys are back up on your feet. And I remember looking Tyler in his eyes, and we were like, "What the hell just happened?" Like,
yeah, he was a tough.
We thought that was over, and now they're brawling. Yeah, that was.
So when you see that, when you're connecting and you're making really good shots, and you see his lights flicker, but then he's back in it, does that change your game plan and your fight strategy? What you're going to do?
It definitely should have changed my game plan for that fight. But he just like, I just got into this like super ego mindset of like, I'm just going to hang in here and bang with this dude. Yeah. And I definitely should have stuck with the taking him down and then repeating and then just going for submissions, repeat it until he subs, I'd like to think that I would make the smarter decision nowadays. Yeah. So
going off,
you got to learn from it,
Yeah.
I think it goes back to what Johann was saying is, if you're interested, pick something and go to it. Pick Muay Thai, pick jiu-jitsu, pick boxing, and go be proficient.
Sure.
Like you said, it instills that confidence. And I don't think, even nowadays, some of these newer guys hitting the streets, I would guarantee you 98% of these kids have never been just punched in the face.
Can I tell you right now? So when I was in the training unit, I was the head DT instructor. We'd have a class of, let's say 20 or 30 people. And so they'd come into me and I'd say, okay, cool. This is your first DT class. I'd say, how many of you people have ever been in a fight? And I'm not talking like a fight with your brother or your sister. I'm talking like a legit fight, like at school or out on the streets or anything like that. How many of you 20 have been in a fight? And almost every single time, maybe one and maybe two people would raise their hands and said, yeah, I've been in a fight. Mm-hmm. So 2 out of 20 I say that's pretty average
Yeah.
for, me growing up. Maybe I'm an outlier, but me growing up, dude, I fought so many times.
Oh yeah.
I can't even count how many times I fought when I was growing up. I fought all of the time.
It was all the time. And it was just schoolyard. You have a beef with somebody, and it was after school. There was a place, and you would meet out there because it's way out. Nobody's going there. The cops aren't going there. And we'd all park, and it would just be, I don't like you. And they would just, and again, there's no techniques. There's no proficiency. It's just
brawling.
Brawling.
It's just a
Dudes
brawl.
standing
And
up.
the thing nowadays too is like you just don't know what people are gonna do. Like
Yeah.
nobody squashes beef like that anymore.
No.
Now there's guns, now
Yes.
there's
Oh, yeah.
knives, and
Oh yeah.
they're jumping people. Like it's no more of that. Like, hey, we have a problem, we're settling it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's none of that anymore. It's I'm gonna do a drive by. Like
Exactly.
See, and I wish we did that in our department. Like if you have beef with somebody, you go
drive-by?
They drive by.
You do a drive-by on them? Drive-by
Jeez.
lineups.
You're looking up at
Hey,
the
hold on,
apartment.
hold on.
Where does this dude live?
Where does this guy live?
No,
at?
I'm talking. No.
All right, I'm getting this guy.
Just because I'm brown doesn't mean we always go to drive-bys, okay? No, I'm talking about what
is that
Jeremy's
before or
talking
after
about.
your beer run?
That's most people, okay? That's most people. But no, like what Jeremy's saying, like, dude, I wish I probably shouldn't say this, but there's a couple people in this department I would love to get into
So
an
they-
octagon.
100%.
I would love to.
In New York City, they do that.
I love the idea.
So
I love it.
what they do
Listen here.
is they have like a league, and
Yeah.
obviously there are 40,000+
Right.
officers depending on the year. I mean, it's right around 38,
Mhm.
40,000, and obviously they're in their different precincts, or whatever. But they have a league, a boxing league, and it usually ends up being, I have a beef with this guy. They go in the ring, they go at it, and it's set up like a legit boxing match.
Mhm.
But you squash beefs there in the ring. But back to what Fitz is saying, kind of that trial by combat. There are several, you call it somebody like, let's go in the ring and settle it. And then whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
And again, that's how I grew up. A lot of
And it's squashed. It's done.
a lot of
We
our
fight. If I'm the one that's mad at you and you knock me out, cool. I have nothing to be mad at.
you
Yeah,
shake
and
I
hands.
called you
and
out
it's
and you beat me. Cool. Yeah.
done. A lot of
You're
my
the better man today.
a lot of my Friday nights, that's how it was. We had a buddy, he had a garage, and you could call it anybody. And you'd go hammer it out, just basically like your 16-ounce gloves. And when it was done, you shook hands, and that was it. And that's how we squashed a lot of stuff where I was from growing up.
Yeah.
But again, going back to what Jake was saying, there are not enough people who, like you said, out of the 20 recruits, you're like, how many of you have actually been in a fight? Maybe one or two.
Yeah.
They don't know what it's like to be hit in the face, have their bell rung, because that's what it is. You get hit in the face and have your bell rung, and then realize I can still do stuff. I can still
Yes.
operate. I can still get shit taken care of.
Yeah.
And so they don't teach that enough.
No.
No, the biggest problem that we have in today's society in law enforcement, I think, is that they think that all the tools on their belts are going to save their lives.
Yeah,
that's
that is a
the biggest
huge problem.
mistake.
Yeah.
Huge problem.
And they think that their physical capabilities don't take into account, and obviously I'm a law enforcement officer, so I'm not talking smack on law enforcement officers, but they think like as soon as I put on that vest, like, oh, I'm the man. People are going to do what I say.
Respect
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
authority.
Yeah, exactly.
Less now than ever,
yeah,
dude.
less now
You
than
felt, back when I was newer, I felt like there was more of a respect where it's like, oh, this is a cop, I better just do what he says. Whereas I see nowadays a lot more defiance in people. They're saying, yeah, you know what? I don't give a shit that you have this badge on. It means nothing to me. Let's fight.
I still remember very vividly. I became a cop when I was 21 years old. Basically had very little experience in the world, but I was dealing as a 21, 22-year-old brand new officer. I was dealing with 40, 50, 60-year-old guys who were calling me sir, which was completely opposite how I grew up.
Mhm.
But you show up to a scene and this 50, 60-year-old guy is saying, yes, sir, yes, sir. And I'm thinking like, I'm 21. I can barely buy a beer. And this dude's calling me sir. But years ago, maybe there was a little bit more respect, but less now so than ever.
Mm-hmm.
Does not matter what you're wearing. Like,
And that's the biggest problem too. And we talked about like proficiency and training and pick something, and that's great. But realistically, like in a perfect world, we would have cops that are proficient overall, like they knew MMA.
Yeah.
Because I have met some high level jiu-jitsu guys, 140-pound black belts that would tie us in knots, right?
Yeah.
But the moment that I get on top and we're doing MMA rounds and I crack them once in the face, it's like they lose a stripe every time I hit them.
Yeah.
It's like they can't think straight. Like they're like, oh my God, I'm like, I don't know what's happening. And they're doing the wrong things, and they revert back to like white belt level jiu-jitsu because they just don't have that like experience of getting hit in the face and functioning like that.
Yeah.
And part of it is, I think it's that generational gap, because I grew up, and I think Jake grew up, you know, there were still Army commercials playing on TV about, you know, come join and basically be a badass. I grew up watching the Predator movies. I still remember 10 years old, my mom bought me the Terminator 1 and 2 box set, 10 years old. And so I'm watching Terminator 1 and 2, I'm watching Rambo, and I'm watching these, obviously it's, you know, Hollywood fake TV, but this idea of being this alpha male, being in control, going and doing. And, you know, you watch any of those movies and these guys got dealt some heavy blows, but they still went on. Mm-hmm. And growing up that way, even with just that mindset that when shit goes wrong, you can still get shit done. Carrying that into, you know, like you said, schoolyard fights, you know, calling out a bully, calling out somebody who you didn't like, you went and threw hands. You got your bell rung, you shook hands afterwards. Like Johann said, that's not the mindset today. I don't like you, I'm going to drive by and shoot up your house. Or
talk shit on you on Facebook.
I'm going to talk shit on you on Instagram and get 5 buddies and we're going to jump you when you're not looking. I think it's just a different mindset for these officers coming in. But yeah. I think day one of the academy, they should be blindfolded and punched directly in the fucking mouth.
I like it.
And then, okay, that's your introduction. Do you want to be a cop?
Yeah. It's like, this is real life.
And what's good now about our department in general is that we have good guys in the training unit that are actually developing like actual skills that we can use out in the field, and skills that I have used multiple times and that has helped me tremendously.
I think in the academy, we maybe had 1 or 2 guys when I went through the academy, instructors who knew and were proficient in some fighting technique. Now we have almost all of them are proficient in something and they're teaching something. You know, in the academy, we do something called Fight for Your Life. And then the first scenario was you're laying down on the ground, and obviously they put some facial protection on. Whoever you're fighting had facial protection on. And I still remember my first scenario was I'm laying on the ground with my eyes closed, and they didn't tell you when the scenario began. It began when the guy hit me in the face.
You know, it's funny. In yours, you guys had facial protection. We did not.
Yeah.
We did not. I got cracked in my jaw by the guy who I was fighting, and my jaw to this day clicked.
Holy crap.
So I think they learned a little bit, you know, because you were probably
I learned it sucks to eat tacos nowadays. That shit, bro.
I think you're probably like 6 or 8 classes ahead of me, right? What number were you?
122.
I was 126, so 4 classes ahead of me, and they learned a little bit.
Class numbers?
I know. I don't know why.
Losers. You're so dumb.
So I still remember I'm sitting there with
pride, bitch.
I remember laying with my eyes closed. The guy hits me, and obviously I'm a bigger guy. So I just kind of go berserker mode, and I end up getting on top of this guy, reaching out, I just start choking the shit out of him. And
Jeremy's going fucking 100.
He's just straight up choking the guy.
Viking mode.
And so I just start raining down blows and like, hey, index, which is our word for like stop scenario.
End exercise.
And they're like, hey, you cannot do that. And I'm like, hold up. I thought this was fight for your life. If I'm fighting for my life and if I can choke this dude. Rules. Yeah.
And they're all, is your DA. You can't do that.
And you're guilty.
Pops up out of nowhere. He's like, yeah, arrest that man.
Arrest that man.
So, and I think a guy my size would be very helpful because,
100%.
especially in our population when you're dealing with, I'm the size of a 12-year-old Tongan, right? You get a 12-year-old Polly and it's like, this kid's 12, exact same size.
Same.
Well, so my first fight for your life scenario, right? So you do the whole warm-up thing, get nice and winded, throw the headgear on, step onto the mat, and there's a blue gun, so a little fake gun, you know, and then there's the perpetrator.
Right.
And they say, okay, this, you know, handle the situation, get him, you know, get him
the perp.
The perpetrator.
What is this?
Law and Order.
Okay.
Oh my
So
God.
the perpetrator happens to be the one and only Jake. So I'm sitting there, I look at the gun and I look at Jake, and Jake's a big ass dude. And I said, in my head, I'm like, oh, I can take this dude. No. Horrible answer. So I go immediately to try to tackle. I don't know if you remember this.
I don't remember this at all.
I go immediately to try to tackle Jake. That did not work out so well because I caught an uppercut right to the face.
This is awesome. I'm like, I don't remember this at all.
So we're probably 15 feet apart,
Uh-huh.
maybe 20 feet apart, and the gun's in the middle on the ground.
Uh-huh.
And so I start running, and I pretend to like bend down like I'm gonna grab the gun, and so you kind of start to go down too, and I throw my arms out to try to tackle you, and all I see is just this big ham fist boom, hit me right square in the middle of the face, and I stand straight up and I look at you and my eyes are huge. I'm just like, oh shit. And then you just clobbered me and we're rolling around on the ground. Yeah, that was
Oh,
fun.
that's
So
fun.
I had
That's
to do,
funny. You remember that? I don't remember it.
Yeah.
dude.
Of course I remember that.
I had to do my first scenario twice because I started choking it like you can't do that.
Because you guys didn't establish a safe word before.
Pineapples. I said
Yeah.
pineapples is my safe
Hold
word.
on.
Then I go into the second scenario, which is very similar. Again, I get on top and I go down and I start choking them. And then they go,
You didn't learn the
don't learn your
first
lesson
time?
the
No.
first time, bro.
I'm in fight for my life. They go index, and Rob's like, yeah, at some point I was fighting for my life as a suspect. And I'm like, I don't give a shit. And then the third one was the one with the gun in the middle. And then I go and I push him away, get the gun. I'm so winded by now. I'm like, bang, 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 bang. I think nowadays in our training unit, we have more instructors who are proficient in different techniques and tactics,
Oh, yeah.
which is a lot more helpful to these new officers if they use it right.
The generation of cops coming out are not so hands-on like the rest of us are.
In our society, I think the alpha male is fewer and further between. I don't think we have the guys that are like ready to take charge, whoop ass. I feel like that's less and less and less. I feel like that was more prevalent back when we were younger. And I think it's because of society in and of itself. Toxic masculinity. That's the thing they push nowadays. Is masculinity toxic though? Is it toxic to be somebody who wants to protect their family, be somebody who is the stud? Is that such a toxic thing? I don't
It's not
Yeah,
for me
I-
because I enjoy being what we are. I enjoy being a domesticated savage.
Yes.
I enjoy being able to go out with my family. And I think there's an old, and Fitz, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's a Marine saying like, be nice, be professional, but have a plan to kill everybody.
Yeah.
Something,
Be polite, be professional, have a plan to kill everyone you meet.
and that's a saying that I really like because when I go out, I'm nice to everybody. I'm a joy to be around, but don't mistake that for flaccidity. I'm not flaccid.
And I agree with that 100%, is that there's definitely less when you see it in my generation. But even in the generation now coming out, whatever, it's almost rare to see those types of dudes, right? Like we'll get like one dude in the academy where you're like, okay, this dude's going to be squared
Right.
away. And it used to be more.
Yeah.
Like when it was my academy, it was like 7 of us, I would say that I was like, wow, these are like solid dudes. But like going back to that toxic masculinity thing, like I definitely like having that confidence of knowing that I can do that.
Right. We've been on the topic of, fighting. I want to know, do you have a story relating to maybe not fighting, maybe fighting, but your rookie time? Tell us a rookie story.
All right.
Tell
So
us a rookie story.
this is a rookie story and a fight story. So there's a lot of times in my short law enforcement career where there have been hands thrown and, people thrown and things like that. But I call them tussles. It's not a real dragged out fight. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people are like, oh, I got in a fight last week. I had to slam this dude against a car. And I'm like, that's not a fight.
That's not a fight, bro.
That's not a fight. That's a tussle.
That's a
That's a tussle.
That's a dude resisting.
I
That's
like
a dude,
it.
that's-
Absolutely.
and so
That's a
I
tussle.
always tell new guys, I'm like, bro, you were not in a fight. That was not a fight. But anyways, me and my homeboy, we were like 21 Jump Street style, just running and gunning, trying to get all the bad dudes off the streets. And basically we got a call about like a trespasser at a pizza place, and so you're like, oh dude, typical trespasser, doesn't want to leave, just some like transient person, doesn't, washing up in the bathroom, whatever, right? We'll show up on scene, me and my boy T, the manager's just trying to like tell us like, hey, we're closing soon. We need you to get this guy out of here. We're like, all right, well, let's talk to him. Let's see what we can do. We go talk to the guy. He's saying stuff like, hey dude, I'll pay for it. Don't worry about it. And we're like, what are you talking about? Like, did you order food? Like, what's the issue? He's talking to us through a bathroom door. It's a very small bathroom. He's like, I'll pay for it. I'm sorry, blah, blah. And we're like, dude, what are you sorry for? Like, what are you talking about? He throws his debit card underneath the door. Then he throws his ID underneath the door. He's like, that's who I am. I'm just really sorry. I'll pay for everything, I swear. And we're like, dude, just come out of the bathroom. We'll talk to you, blah, blah, blah. Dude doesn't want to come out, whatever. We start asking for assistance for like medical. We're like, maybe he's having like a mental breakdown. Like maybe medical can come and talk to him. Like, hey, would you want to talk to them? And he's like, yeah. So he's talking to him through the door and he doesn't want to come out. Our sergeant shows up on scene. We're like, hey, well, let's try opening it up with the key. Like, dude's got the door barricaded. I try to budge it, and I'm not like a weak dude, but I like really try to like budge that door open. Not moving. I was like, dang, dude is barricaded, right? Then we're like, dude, like what can we do to help you? Because he was saying that he was having like a panic attack and all these weird things, like, and just kind of talking nonsense. And already in our mind, we're thinking like, oh, dude, this dude's on drugs. Like he's on something. And finally, he gives us the name of his brother, and he's like, I'll come out for my brother. We do a little bit of research, find his brother. He lives like 40 minutes away. And we're like, dude, that is a long time. Call the brother. The brother's like, I'm on my way. Can you guys wait for me? Our sergeant's like, yeah, for sure. Orders us some pizza. And he's like, all right, well, we're going to kick it then if we're waiting for like 40 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. So we get a little grub.
Are you standing outside the freaking bathroom eating pizza?
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. What kind of pie did you have?
Oh, I'm a plain pepperoni type.
Pepperoni.
Pepperoni
That's not
type
bad.
of pie.
That's not bad.
I'm a meat lovers.
I mean,
Meat
but
lovers is good.
Yeah,
but a
you
pep
are.
sitting there, a pep.
Jake loves the meats.
Delicious.
I can verify.
Can confirm.
Can confirm.
But so we're eating some pie. Even the EMS guys are getting in on it, you know, like they're all chilling. The funny thing about this is this will play into, you know, later into the story. But the guys start asking us, they're like, hey, so have you guys seen that like movie End of Watch? And me and my boy are like, yeah, we've seen that movie, you know? And they're like, so is it really like that out there? Vehicle chases.
Who's asking you this?
The EMS guys.
Oh, okay.
They were like new EMS guys.
Okay.
They were like, so is it like vehicle pursuits and shootings and gang members all the time? And we're like, no, not really. I mean, there's some parts that can be scary, I guess, but like, it's not really like that. Maybe in LA. Yeah.
This ain't South Central LA.
Yeah. I was like, maybe someplace like that. That'll play a part into the story later.
What is cop work really like? What movie is it really like?
Oh, it's
The other
hands
guys.
down the other guys.
The other guy.
The
Oh,
other-
the other guys. That's cop
Hands
work
down
right
the other guys. I tell
We
people
joke
that all.
about all the
I
time.
tell people that all the
Yes.
time, and nobody believes me.
Yeah.
And I tell them, ask any real police officer what movie police work resembles, and probably 7 out of 10 of them will give you the other.
They're
guy.
going to be honest with you.
Oh yeah,
It's the other guys.
hands down.
Well, even the Despot. Like January 27th, 2019.
Yeah.
Is that your desktop?
Yes, sir.
It's even like aim for the bushes. That's who jumped off and chasing that guy is like aim for the tree.
So anyways, brothers en route. We're having some pie. EMS guys are talking to us. Finally, brother shows up. So we're like, hey, so like, tell us what's going on. And he's like, yeah, I think he relapsed on drugs. He was doing super well. Like he had a business, he had a home, whatever. But from what you're telling me, it sounds like he's back on the drugs. So we're like, okay, well, let's try talking to him through the door. Like, can you do that and see if he'll open up for you and come out? Sure enough, brother talks to him through the door and he's like, wow, is that really you? And he's like, yeah, it's me. He decides to open the door. I want to say like 1.5 feet open. And I tell the brother to move out of the way. I'm like, hey, get out of the way now. Let me see what's going on. First thing that I see is that the mirror's broken on the wall. The sink is broken, torn off the wall, and there's blood and shit water on the ground. And I'm like looking around. I'm like, what the hell? And he has like shoestrings tied to like pipelines and stuff. And that's what he's using to like help keep the door closed. And I can see through like a small part of the mirror that's on the wall that he has cuts on his wrists, like vertical cuts, and he's bleeding out. And I was like, we need to save this dude. Like, we have to act. And being the new guy, I'm like, I want to act. I want to do something, right? So I'm like, oh, we need to like get in here. I could see that his right hand was hidden behind his leg, behind his back. And we're like arguing like past the doorway. He's behind the door. And I'm like, hey, dude, drop whatever you have in your hands, get back on the wall. And he's like, no, you're not the real police. And I'm like, no, look at my badge. Like, I am the real police. You need to open up, show me your hands. Dude's just not having it. He's trying to shut the door on me. I'm like, nope. Sergeant comes in with like I can't remember if he had a knife or scissors or whatever, cuts the shoestring, and I pop in with my taser. I'm like, dude, I'm going to tase you. So I like step in and I try to tase him, but he had like a sweater up with his other hand. So he blocks the taser prongs. One of them hit the sweater, one of them hit him somewhere. so it didn't connect.
Mm-hmm.
Then I draw down. Now I have my gun on the dude, and we're in a really confined bathroom. I am not comfortable where I'm at even a little bit. Already I'm thinking like, man, I made the wrong call here. And my buddy's trying to get in on it, but it's just so confined that I'm like, dude, this is like we're not in a good position right now. I could still see that he had his hand hidden behind his back. I was like, dude, drop it. Cause like, I'm already thinking like he has a piece of glass. He has like a knife. He has something.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until I used my really serious voice, I'm going to fucking shoot you. And I had my gun pointed at his head, and I'm like, this is it. He decides to throw what was in his hand. He had a multi-tool with the knife out. I don't know if that's what he used to cut his arm or whatever, but he throws it. Then he goes, okay, all right, I'm sorry. He lifts his hands up, starts surrendering. So I tell my buddy, T, and I'm like, hey, all right, let's go in. So then he goes in with me. We go to put hands on the dude. And instantly he like shoves my boy into like the door and the light shut off. So now we're in a very small confined space. I don't know what this guy has. I don't know what's going on. I don't know where my buddy's at because like it's just dark, pitch black. Luckily, my coach had taught me to like grapple with my eyes closed before. So he's like, you don't see everything that you're gonna do. You feel stuff out, right? So I'm like feeling stuff. I'm like punching him, I'm kneeing him, I'm elbowing, I'm freaking doing everything, and the dude's not budging. He's so hopped up on drugs, I don't think he's feeling anything. I'm able to feel a Kimura, which is like an arm lock for all of you people that don't know what that is. It's like an arm lock on the dude, and I slam him to the ground. Luckily, when I slammed him to the ground, our sergeant popped in and turned the lights on. And at that moment, the dude's like pressed up against the wall, but he's on his right side. But he still had enough space that he reached up with his right hand, grabbed a piece of glass, and then tried to stab us. So the piece of glass probably got within, I want to say like a foot between me and my buddy's necks. Like we were right on top of the dude. So I pressure into him again, pin his arm, and we just start laying the hate on this dude. Just freaking drop it and let pop, just freaking hitting him. Then I'm telling him like, I'm going to shoot you. Like now I'm going to shoot you. Dude freaking just, the glass just cracks in his hand. It just shatters. And then the dude's like, okay, I'm sorry. And get the guy into custody. He's just a bloody mess. His face looks like hamburger meat because of all the glass that broke in his face and everything. And then we start pulling the guy out. The EMS guys are shook. They're like, what just happened?
Mm-hmm.
They're like, dude, we hear you're about to shoot a dude. And then freaking lights turn off and then just a rumble in there. And then you pull him out and he looks like hamburger meat.
What is
like,
this, a haunted house, bro?
they're like, it is like end of watch. They're like, this is crazy.
Like, you know what? You're right. We can't rebut that.
It is
right.
end of watch, bro. End of watch.
That to me was one of the most real moments of like, this is it. This is like what
You play for keeps.
Yeah, this is like, that could have been me. That could have been my homie.
Yeah.
That could have been him. Like, you know?
Yep.
And luckily it worked out in the end. There's a lot of mistakes that were made that I learned from, you know, and now, you know, in my experience, my training and experience nowadays, I would never do something like that again.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like my fight background saved me in that situation from getting stabbed in the neck or worse, you know.
Pretty crazy that you trained fighting with your eyes closed and then that came into practice actually on a flipping call. That's pretty crazy. Tell you right now, I ain't never trained with my freaking eyes closed.
That, yeah.
Never. That's pretty awesome.
Well, and you think about it too, right? If that happens to any other officer, what's the first thing they're going to do, right? Everyone's going to start digging for flashlights.
Trying to get the lights on.
Mm-hmm. Completely forget about the
almost
threat.
for a minute I thought when you're like the lights went out and you're like you're laying elbows in hate, I thought the lights were come back and you're fighting your partner.
I know, so too.
you would lay hate on my buddy.
You're just dropping bows on each other. Like, oh shit!
And I was gonna laugh if the dude's in the background watching, like you guys fuck each other.
Like, wow,
he's got some MVGs on, just watching the whole thing.
this meth head's got a lot of gear. He's really athletic. He smells kind of nice too.
Oh, that's funny.
That's a very good.
That's a pretty
fight
good
story.
one, yeah.
Keeping in with the theme, obviously having Johann on and fight nights. One that pops up into my mind is a call I responded to. It's just north of our old public safety building. That apartment complex is about to be tore down. And so it was vacant at the time, but there were a few homeless camps behind it. So there's one guy who has a cot set up right behind it, right up against the wall. I was going to another apartment complex on a call, but another officer calls and says, hey, I got one guy going to fight me. I need officers here quick. And I was like half a block away. So I was like, I'm right there. I run over. He's giving commands to this dude he was just sitting on this cot with a knife right between his legs. And he's on taser and he's like, hey, look, this guy's obviously trespassing. The owner of the building wants him gone. He's not leaving. And I've told him to leave. And basically the guy's response is like, we're going to throw hands. It's on like Donkey Kong. By that time, another officer shows up. So there's three of us. And so we're telling him like, hey, you don't want to go this route. Just give up. You're going to jail. Don't make it worse for yourself. And the guy's like, I'll murder all three of you. So we're like, okay, this is the way you want it. This is the way it's going to go. Me and the other officer who arrived, we go hands and we are controlling his upper body. The other officer gets in, kicks the knife away, and the guy's still kicking the other officer, and we're controlling his upper body. And the other officer's trying to get control of his lower body. So two of us are up top, kind of controlling his arms and his upper torso. And the other officer is trying to get control of his legs so we can kind of turn him around, put handcuffs on him. But this guy, he's probably 6'1", 190. So he's not a skinny guy, but he's very wiry. One of the officers starts giving some blows in the head, and the guy's, it's just not registering. This guy is orbiting Saturn. He's out there. And so whatever we're doing is not coming through. So we're still up top, me and the other officer controlling his upper body. I have one arm, the other has one arm. And the third officer, the original officer who called, says, all right, well, I'm going to go on taser. And there's not a whole lot of real estate left. And it's very close quarters, so he can't step back and fire the taser because, they go in an angle and the prongs spread. So he dumps the cartridge and he's going to go to a drive stun. Well, one of the most effective areas to drive stun at that time was the taint. And so we're holding him and he's like, all right, taser, taser, taser. And he puts it right up on the taint and just gives him a shock of his life. And the
Gives
guy,
him the real shock.
he gives him the real shocker. And the guy's like, my balls, my balls. And he lets him ride it for the 5 seconds. And he's like, knock it off or you're getting in the ride. And so he's like, all right, round 2. And he cooks his nuts a second time. He probably hit that taint 3 or 4 times before the guy's like, I'm done.
Holy cow.
I'm tired of this. And he submits. And so we put him in custody and the guy's like, my balls are buzzing. No shit, buddy.
He's shooting out Pikachus.
Bro, he's got Pikachus on his taint living there, just zapping him left and right.
Gave him the real life ass blaster.
Ass blaster. Absolutely. Afterwards, I was like, holy shit. I mean, it wasn't anything egregious or, we didn't have to use a ton of force, but I was like, that was hilarious. Because when he connected with the taint, the guy was singing, he was operatic. I mean, he was hitting the high notes.
Soprano.
He was a high soprano.
Yeah.
But again, tools can be effective, especially when they're applied to the taint. I believe, I know that Jake has a pretty significant use of force fight story where it was a pretty good Donnybrook.
So this was one of our tracks, the North Track. Corey referred to the South Track. This is the North Track. One of our main thoroughfares there on the west side. Me and a female officer responded out there on a man that was just an unwanted person. He was kind of doing some weird shit. He was a resident of one of the hotel rooms, but the hotel staff called in and said, this guy is being weird. He's going to the parking lot, looking in people's cars, and we don't want him here because he's just acting weird. So we go up to the hotel room, knock on the door, and he answers. And he's like in some t-shirt and some underwear, and his room is just disheveled. Crazy crap all over the place. Female officer's the lead officer on it, so she's telling him, hey, you need to leave. They don't want you here anymore. You're basically kicked out of this hotel room. You need to leave. He's acting pretty cool with us. The female officer I'm with sees, oh crap, he's got a bunch of drugs on the table right there behind him. She's like, wait, hold on. Is that drugs right there? And as soon as she notifies him that she sees the drugs, he loses his mind. He's like, blah! And he goes to punch her. And I grab him and I push him against the wall. And I'm like, dude, hey, knock it off. Knock it off. And I've got him pinned against the wall and I'm holding his t-shirt. Well, he does this crazy magician move where he raises his hands up. I've got him by the shirt, right? Pushed against the wall. He raises his hands up and lowers his body down, and he comes out of his shirt.
Oh, wow.
Literally like boof out of his shirt, and I'm holding onto his shirt. And now he's like running down the hall, shirtless. I start running after him. And I pull my taser out and I shoot him with the taser. One prong hits him in the top part of the back. One part hits him right in his buttocks. perfect spread, and he just turns, grabs the wires, and pulls the wires out of the taser. But it stops him, and I'm running after him. I jump on top of his back. Me fully kitted out. At the time, I'm probably like 270 with all my kit on. I jump on his back. This guy is maybe 5'10", 170 pounds, and he runs with me down the hall. On his back. He runs with me down the hall. And I'm like, oh shit, this is not normal, right?
Yeah.
And he's running with me down the hall. I put my foot down between his legs as I'm on his back, and it trips him up, falls to the ground, stands up, and now he's got a fighting stance. He's got his hands up, and he's acting like he's going to punch me. And I raise my hands up too, and I clock him, one right in his mouth. Just smashed him right in the mouth, and he falls back against the wall. Ugh. And he comes back up a moment later. Eyes rolled in the back of his head when I hit him. When he comes back up, his eyes go wide, looks at me, spits out some teeth, says, "You are a real cop." And raises his hands up again. I'm like, oh, here we go. Boom. And I hit him again. Does the same thing. It's like repeat on repeat, dude. I hit him like probably 5 or 6 times. The last time I hit him, my hand glances off his head and it hits the wall. The wall's made of cement. I break my hand.
Oh.
I don't know it at the time, but I break one of my knuckles. Boom. Break the knuckle. We go to the ground and we're fighting on the ground. It felt like for freaking ever. Any listener who's been in a fight, you'll know. If you fight for longer than a minute, 2 minutes, if you're not trained in fighting, that feels like an eternity. Well, I fought this guy for 8 straight minutes. We fought for 8 straight minutes, like a knockdown, drag out fight. I've got pretty good positioning on him and I'm on top of him, but I'm getting tired. The officer I'm with, when she was fighting with him, initially, the very first part of the fight, she like tore one of the ligaments in her thumb. So she's out of the fight. I'm basically fighting this guy by myself. I almost say exhaustion. I don't have many tools in my bag now, because my taser didn't work. OC is not going to work. Baton's not going to work in this instance right here. So basically I've got to, use my physical force. I'm getting so tired to the point where it's like, the only way I'm going to handle this, I'm going to have to shoot this guy. I get his back and I put him in a chokehold, rear naked choke. Finally, his body goes limp. I can put the cuffs on him. So I let off the choke. And as soon as I let off the choke, flying again, like trying to fight me again, I'll put that choke back on him. And I look at the officer with him like, put your cuffs on this guy. Put your cuffs on him. He runs over and like puts the cuffs on. As I've got the choke put on, as soon as I let the choke off, boom, he's back alive again, like fighting like it was 10 minutes ago,
Yeah.
right from the first part of the fight. But we got cuffs on him now, and I pick him up, and we got to take him out. I got to call medical out. I put him over my shoulder, and I like fire him and carry him out down to the like down the landing, down the stairs because we're on the second floor. Go down the stairs, get out to the main area. I plop him on the floor just outside the main doors. And we call for medical. Medical shows up. They transport this guy to the hospital. Turns out he was hella high on PCP and methamphetamine. It was insane the amount of energy and strength this guy had. He was not a big guy, but because of the drugs he had on board, he was able to fight me. I'm a pretty big guy. He was able to fight me off like a flipping wet paper sack.
So at one of the clubs downtown, we were out there dealing with another incident across the street at one of the hotels. And while we're across the street dealing with this situation, we hear a lot of yelling and screaming and stuff coming from the patio area of the club, which is kind of normal, but this type of yelling and screaming was very angry. And so that kind of draws our attention. So we take a look over and there's a security guard or one of the bouncers trying to kick a dude off of the property. Steve and I go beat bopping across the street, while the one other officer that we were with is dealing with the little civil problem. So by the time we get across the main road and we get to the sidewalk, we start walking over to him and we watch this guy punch the bouncer in the face. Well, unbeknownst to the club goer, the bouncer is a bare knuckle boxing champion. So he takes this punch square in the jaw and just stares at the guy. And you can see the dude get scared. He takes a half step back like, holy crap, like I just gave this dude
The Terminator.
yeah. He's like, I just gave this dude my best shot and he didn't even flinch. So the bouncer recognizes Steve and I. And so he kind of just points to this dude and he's like, hey, this dude's got to go. And so the guy turns around and sees us and immediately takes off running. And so of course we go in pursuit. We start chasing this dude down and he's running in and out of traffic, running along the sidewalk and goes all the way across the street. And we're yelling the whole time, please stop, stop, get out of the road. And so we start running through this parking lot of the hotel across the street. The other officers that are dealing with the civil problem, they jump in pursuit. The dude finally starts getting close to the hotel and stops and turns around, sets his feet, balls up his hands and raises his hands up. A couple of the other officers beat Steve and I to this guy, and they all stop. They stop like 8 feet away from this guy. In my head, I'm like, why the freak are we stopping? Steve runs right through the officers and just tackles this guy. Hits this dude with no regard for human life whatsoever.
So the first time Steve ever caught anybody on a foot
I think that
pursuit.
was his first successful foot pursuit. You'd have to check his Facebook for his ongoing number, but I'm pretty sure that was his first successful foot
We always
pursuit.
give him shit about George always catching his foot pursuits for him.
I'll tell you a funny story after that about Steve.
So Steve hits this guy just with the force of a 2-ton whatever. Hits this dude, goes to the ground. Steve doesn't completely wrap up, right? Because he never played football, so he doesn't know how to wrap up. They land on the ground, and Steve just goes sliding right off of him. And so I'm still in full sprint. The guy rolls over like he's going to jump on Steve's back. Well, so as the dude starts running over, I just dive on the guy and just hit him with an elbow. Boom! Just solid hit on right on his head. And the dude kind of lays back, and Steve jumps up. And of course, the other officers, everyone dog piles on this guy. The guy's not giving up his hands, right? And so Steve comes flying in with this beautiful knee strike. He hits him so hard, he knocks me completely off this guy. I'm like knocked like a foot away. And so by the time I get back up, the dude's given up. You know, we roll him over and throw the handcuffs on him, do a quick search of the dude, and then we start walking him over to where our cars are. Well, we get over to the cars, doing a full search, throw the dude in the back seat of the car, and this lady, this young gal who kind of watched the whole thing, comes walking over with a shoe and says, hey, I think one of you guys dropped this. And we're looking around, we're like, we wear boots, we don't wear shoes. We're like, it's not one of ours. And she says, no, it's the guy that you just put, that you guys just arrested. When that other officer hit him, he hit him so hard that his shoe stayed in place. And we all looked at each other, we're like, what? And she's like, yeah. She's like, I saw the whole thing. His shoe stayed exactly where it was at when he got tackled. And we all started laughing.
Nice.
And so we, of course, because of the force that we use, we call medical. So the ambulance comes out to check him out. So we pull him out of the car, sit him on the back of the ambulance, and he's getting checked out. While the EMTs are kind of doing their thing, he's looking at us and he's like, I have a question. And we're like, okay. And he says, which one of you guys tackled me? So we point to this smaller officer and we say, that guy. And he goes, no. He's like, for real, like, which one of you guys tackled me? And we're both pointing to this little dude, and we're like, that's the dude that hit you. He looks at the officer and he goes, I never ever want to fight with you ever again. So to this day, this dude thinks that some little 5'8", 150-pound dude just completely cleaned his clock. It was awesome.
That's awesome.
Oh, we were dying. That was a good one.
That's pretty funny. Let's hear your
That was
story.
a fun one.
Oh, no, yeah, just with Steve. So I remember showing up at one of the popular bars that you like to trot around at. I remember hearing something about like a fight happening, whatever, and I see Steve chasing after two dudes. And I park my car really fast. I jump out so fast that my phone had fell out of my pocket onto the asphalt right next to my car. Luckily, it was still there when I came back. But by the grace of God, nobody stole it.
That's surprising.
That's the thing, right?
Especially downtown.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I'm running, but I'm 30 yards behind them. Like I need to catch up. They take a quick turn left, and now there's only one dude in front of Steve, and Steve's still running. And I was like, where'd the other guy go? Steve just was like, over there. And I look to my left, and I just see feet jumping. Like I just see the little feet jumping over this 8-foot metal fence. I was like, dude, is that dude Spider-Man? Like, how the hell am I going to get up there? Yeah. And so I run at this wall and I jump, and somehow I made it over. I'm not a great jumper. I don't know how I made it over this wall. I jump over and I see him, I guess at the same time, or just like seconds before they had called out this foot pursuit, there was another foot pursuit on a different channel, but it was still the same one. So they restricted this channel for the other foot pursuit. So now we're in this foot pursuit, and they told us to switch, but I'm in the foot pursuit, so I'm not hearing any of this. I jump over the wall, and then the dude gets stuck behind this metal fence that he can't jump over, and I run at him, and I freaking tackle him, and we hit the ground, and I put him in cuffs or whatever, and I was like, sweet, I got one. So then I'm like, on the radio, I'm like, hey, I got one back here. And they're like, get off our channel. Well, I was like, oh, Jesus Christ. I was like, oh my God. And so then I come back out, And I guess some other officers had cut that other guy off that Steve was chasing and had caught him.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we we talk about it, whatever. I got the guy, I'm like super stoked. I'm still like a newer officer. And I was like, yeah, I got my guy. No big deal. And then Steve comes over and he's like, hey, man, we're releasing all of them. And I was like, what?
What?
But
He's
part of
like-
the course.
He's like, yeah, it was like mutual combat, blah, blah, blah. Nobody's getting charged. I'm like, I just had a spider ran over this
Oh,
wall,
shit.
dead sprint, and I got yelled at by some dude over the radio. Thanks a lot, Steve.
So that right there concludes our episode of the Fight Night. Who are some of your other sponsors to make sure that people can go to them and see that, help that benefit you?
Best MMA gym in Utah, Elite Performance. Then we have Water and Wellness, Rockwell Watches, super great products.
I have
too.
a Rockwell. It's a sun watch.
I don't know if there's a cop out there that doesn't have a Rockwell, to be honest with you.
I don't because I'm poor.
You son of a bitch.
You
Wait,
can
hold
use my
on.
code, TheJudge20, and get 20% off, my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, plug
I
that,
don't,
bro,
I don't
for
make,
sure.
I don't make that much
Do
money.
hold
Oh
on.
my, shut the fuck.
Do the tugboats deliver Rockwell watches to your island?
It's rowboats.
Okay, rowboats.
We
They have an
haven't gotten
airport,
that
you
technology
We
yet.
can get it.
We have an airport. Fuck. I hate you guys so much.
And Spartan Trades. And then last but not least, Body Temple Athletics on Instagram.
All right, so we got some of those put in there. We got some of those plugged, which is obviously something we want to do for you. Thanks for coming out here
Appreciate that.
and podcasting with us. Remember, go to domesticatedsavages.com, click on the link, go to our site, click on play on Spotify. Get us some listens there. That helps us out. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook. Also, you can find us on YouTube, Domesticated Savages. Appreciate you guys. Thanks a lot. Remember, stay savage.